about that deep, and from South Carolina, that's a lot of snow. And I took this photograph when I was there. And this is what's called the diamond ring effect. The sun's moving from the moon's moving from right to left. You can see a few of the prominences peeking out here. But what really makes the photograph the diamond ring effect is right here. This little bit of the sun is just, the photosphere is just starting to peek out. Not safe to look at, by the way. I was snapping pictures really fast, trying to catch this, and the Lord was kind. I was able to catch it, even though it lasted a fraction of a second. And it does look like a diamond ring with the ring here and the band around there. And it's really interesting. We ran a tape during all this. My wife was she's much quieter than I am, and I'm more talkative and outgoing. We played the tape back later. It was really strange. I hardly said a word, and my wife was just yakking away during the entire time. And it has a strange effect upon people. I was snapping pictures. I forgot to bolt down the tripod on the camera, and I didn't have enough sense to try to bolt it down. The camera was flopping all over the place. And after a while, after I was taking pictures for a few moments, I said, this is silly. I'm just taking pictures. I need to enjoy this. So I just knelt down in the snow and just looked around at everything. Tried to drink it in. I've seen a lot of neat things in my lifetime, but the total solar eclipse is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Now that's the eyes of an astronomer, but that's true.
It's also the eyes of anybody else that's seen one.
You were really impressed, and so was everybody else.
Anybody that's seen one will tell you that. Well, what about total solar eclipses? It's interesting. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun.
Right.
But the moon is 400 times closer to us, which means the sun and the moon are about the same size in the sky, and the moon just barely covers the sun up.
That's amazing. So even though it's 400 times smaller because of the distance, they come out the same in the sky.
Same size.
Yeah.
And what that means is that the moon just barely covers it up, and that produces a couple things. First of all, very spectacular eclipses. If the moon were any smaller or farther away, we wouldn't have any total eclipses at all.
Right.
If it were closer or larger, the eclipses wouldn't be very spectacular. And furthermore, the eclipses would happen all the time. They wouldn't be as rare as they are. Typically, there's a total solar eclipse somewhere in the world about every 18 months or so. Not real common, but you have to go to places like Siberia or Timbuktu or Antarctica or Greenland or something like this in order to see these things. And you know, I've looked at all the satellites in the solar system, and this is the only planet on which this is true, these extreme
I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
It's also the only planet that has things that can appreciate it living on the surface.
God did that for us. That's right. Yeah.
And this is a photograph of the moon taken at first quarter. And it's the best time to look at the moon because you'll notice that you can see craters very nicely along what we call the terminator of the moon. And that's because the sunlight's coming from the left. And these are right at the sunrise point on the moon. And so a little tiny hill casts a very long shadow. So the craters and other features really leap out at you. People think full moon's a great time to look at the moon. I don't like full moon because it's not good to look at, and it's not good to look at anything else because it's so bright it blots out the light of fainter objects. Well, the moon has some design aspects. For instance, it's fairly large when compared to the parent Earth. In fact, even though there are many satellites in the solar system, our own moon is closer in size and mass-wise to the Earth than any other planet satellite is to its parent planet. The moon only has like 1.5% the mass of the Earth, but usually the other satellites have like 1/100%. So it's a very large mass body compared to the planet, and it orbits the Earth in the same plane that the orbit of the Earth around the sun follows. You know, our actual tilt is 23.5 degrees, and the moon could be in that equatorial plane, but it's not. It's in what we call the ecliptic plane, the plane we follow around the Earth. Now this is interesting. I learned this just a few years ago, thought about it, understood the implications. There are many satellites in the solar system. No large satellite in the solar system has that kind of orbit. All of the others orbit in the equatorial plane. And that's interesting. It tells us several things. One, it tells us the origin of the moon is different from the others. But the one thing that happens, and it took me a while to really appreciate this, it stabilizes the Earth's axis of rotation, that 23.5 degree tilt. Without the moon, with that kind of orbit and that kind of mass, the the Earth's tilt of axis would go from very high to very low values, and we would go from being in the tropics to being in the polar regions without ever having to move. It's a very long-term thing, but it would wreak havoc upon the climate, upon the living things upon the planet. I don't think it's any accident that we have this kind of moon and this kind of orbit on this kind of planet where only living things are known to exist, for sure. And another thing that's very interesting, the whole story, we can do a whole show on this sometime if you'd like. I think our own moon made physics possible, because the motion of the moon is the big question that Sir Isaac Newton was studying 400 years ago when he was trying to work out his theory of gravity. Without the moon, he couldn't have done that.
Well, that's very fascinating, and to me, you're just screaming design, that
Yes.
this could not be by chance, it was by design. But everyone doesn't see it that way. We've got to go to a break right now, but we'll be back in just a minute. I know you're as fascinated as I am by how astronomy teaches us that we have a God who is a designer. Don't you go away. We'll be right back.
Creation versus evolution. You weigh the evidence. Neptune's wonders. Fascinating activity. Neptune is an amazing planet that can't be explained by long ages of time. Astronomers were amazed to discover that Neptune is very active, even though it's so far from the sun. Winds can reach 1,300 miles per hour, and the planet actually generates heat. Evolutionists keep looking for some weird scenario to explain Neptune. Unfortunately, many astronomers prefer to keep inventing fables rather than admitting to a creator.
Welcome an exchange student into your family. Learn about another culture in a fun and exciting way with Youth for Understanding International Exchange.
I'm finding myself wanting to learn more and more about other countries, and it's really interesting.
Go global. Call 1-800-TEENAGE for this free booklet. Learn how you can welcome a Youth for Understanding exchange student into your community.
Help wanted. Immediate openings available for the most important jobs in America, helping the organizations that help children. Whatever you can do, in whatever time you have, you can make a difference. To learn how you can help in your community, reach us at this web address and number. We're fighting for the children. Whose side are you on?
Ulcer sufferers everywhere are hearing the same good news from their doctors these days.
An infection! Okay, we're all set.
Ask your doctor if your ulcer is caused by an infection. Then ask for the cure.
Late one night in
Every week for the past 4 years, Stephanie has read stories to a room full of Savannah, Georgia preschoolers. Every week, the look on the children's faces is priceless. The love that Stephanie feels from every child has made her life a whole lot brighter. Even though Stephanie has never even seen their faces. To see how you can help in your community, call the Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel something real.
1 out of every 4 babies is not fully immunized. Your child could get a deadly disease. Get all your baby's shots before age 2. You gave them life. Protect it.
Today's guest on Origins, Dr. Danny Faulkner, is also the author of Universe by Design, an explanation of cosmology and creation. This is an excellent book for upper-level homeschool curriculum or the library of an astronomer. Orders are being taken at 1-877-CRS-BOOK. Dr. Faulkner has a degree in math, his master's in physics, and a PhD in astronomy from Indiana University. He is full professor at the University of South Carolina, Lancaster, where he teaches physics and astronomy. For more information about our guest, you can write to Dr. Danny Faulkner, 1402 University Drive, Lancaster, South Carolina, 29720. Or send him an email.
We're back with Dr. Danny Faulkner, and we've been talking about design and astronomy. Dr. Faulkner, we were talking about the uniqueness of the moon. Now bring this back to Earth. How's the uniqueness here come into play?
Because the Earth is a remarkable place. Okay, it really is remarkable when you start thinking about
some of the planet.
My favorite. Actually, I kind of like Mars, but you know, we talk about. First of all, how far a planet has to be from a star like the sun in order to support life. Obviously,